We'll begin in 1 minute. Just waiting for Alder Redente and Alder Miller to return. The Board of Alders, Education Committee of the Board of Alders will meet in person on Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026 at 6 p.m. in the Board of Alders chamber located at 165 Church Street, second floor, New Haven, Connecticut, to hear and act on the following items. Number 1, LM 2026-0044, resolution of the New Haven Board of Alders authorizing the city to participate in, apply for, and accept Community Investment Fund planning grant from the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development not to exceed $250,000 to support planning activities related to the establishing of an HBCU in New Haven. Per order, Honorable Gary B. Hogan, Chair, attest Honorable Michael Smart, City Town Clerk. These items are on file and available in the Office of Legislative Services, City Hall, 165 Church Street, second floor, New Haven, Connecticut, 46510. For accessibility related accommodations, please call 203-946-7651 or 203-946-8582 TTY TDD. Public comment testimony may be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavenct.gov or 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. The meeting will be viewed on the New Haven Board of Alders YouTube page. My name is Gary Hogan. I'm the chair of the Education Committee. I serve Board 28 and started to my right. I ask the committee to introduce themselves.
Sarah Miller, Ward 14.
Theodore, Ward 1.
Christine Kim, Ward 7.
Thank you all for being here this evening. I would suggest anyone that wishes to bring public testimony, to my right and your left is a table with a sign-in sheet. You will go in order of the sign-in sheet if you wish to bring public testimony. I will now call a city staff for presenting LM 2026-004, the resolution order. The meeting starts at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Medria Blue, and I live at 23 Judd Hill Road in Bethany.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Michael Development and even in about a minute when our study project manager averages will join us. He's actually walking through the request to apply for and accept a planning grant from the state of Connecticut. See the floor to Malachi, but just to say that this particular initiative has deep meaning, and the president and our team will be in presentation along with the food sign.
Please state your name and address.
Hello. Sorry, it's Malachi Richards. Address 200 Boxing Road.
It's all yours.
Yes. So, you all are having significantly trying to print all the stuff here. However, someone just ran it away for me. So we're here today to talk about an initiative surrounding HBCUs. But before we start, I hope if it's pleasing to the chair, if we could have a silence for late Alder Tom Fickman. Silence real quick. much. So I bring up the other conflict because this is where we reckon with the history of the 1831 College in New Haven, and also doing something else to that history. So that's why we're here today. We want to clear. We are starting from a place of someone else's work, something that people have already done before we thought about. So this is not anything new, but right now we're acting from a place of, well, what do we do? After we acknowledge the history, after we apologize for it, what is the next step? And this is not the full answer. However, this is one potential solution. So just to start, I don't know if we want to go into specifically kind of the project. So I'll give you a little context of the project. So the CT Alumni Network, who's a partner for the city of New Haven, they do a lot of programming around awareness, HBCUs in the state. And they, we convened together because we were thinking, what can we do to connect and residents who are from New Haven, what can we do to connect them to the emerging sectors of bioscience and quantum, because there seems to be such a gap between the innovation economy and a lot of the residents who are from here. So that's kind of where the idea kind of started to start. And when we just had an idea, we kind of pitched it to a few organizations. Thank you so much. Hey, here are my notes. I don't know if you all have a slide deck, but I printed out a copy. Create account.
Thank you.
Is this any different than one of those previous?
It's a little shorter. So I did that for everyone's time.
Yeah. They wrote that.
Yeah.
So when you look at the slide deck here, it talks a lot about, yeah,
Take a minute to go.
okay, apologies.
It's
It's a lot of pressure.
I know.
No, we talk regularly,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to relax and be able to. We have numerous times,
Yes,
but I understand that.
I have it. I'm so sorry.
No pressure. All right, good?
Yeah. So yes, I appreciate that. So as you can see in the slide, we start off a little bit with the history and orientation, which I spoke about. And as someone who's born and raised in New Haven and has gone to New Haven Public School, I never knew about the history of the college until I worked at the Community Foundation of Greater New Haven as a research associate. And then I learned about this history. I was like, why don't I know this? And that was kind of the start. And then that led us to thinking about, well, how do we connect that? How do we connect the gap between the innovation economy and also our residents in the city? Because what we're seeing is a lot of our organizations, they come together and they talk about the issues and the problems, and they say the city is booming, but it's booming for whom? And a lot of, especially our innovation, we see a lot of transplant people who are not from New Haven and to take advantage and work in and live in a lot of the new development that comes online. And while that's great, because New Haven is getting more people, the employee that has, then when you reflect upon the criticism that you hear, and people feel kind of locked out of opportunities. And people kind of feel locked out of opportunities. That's kind of where the idea took off. And from an idea, and a lot of this history work, so if you can kind of, we have some history here, not going to slide by, but it was proposed in 1831, it was denied, of course, a lot of people realized that by the New Haven Freemen, so they were allowed to vote during that time. And of course, we took to justify that vote. Um, and uh, and after 20 years after that date, the Northeast never established a HBCU network in the same way that a lot of these in the Mid-Atlantic have. So as you can see here, the closest historically black college university, which I've been referring to as HBCU pretty often, it's around almost 5 hours away. And as a result of that foreclosed opportunity, we see a lot of cases that Connecticut extremely suffers. You know, kind of reading through the slide, I actually quote Senator Gary Winfield, who said, well, racialized decisions produce racialized outcomes. And as you can see, Connecticut ranks second on the Gini report for the most economic track, and specifically Norwalk and section of Connecticut has that this economic gratification. And then you look at the over incarceration of Black people in this state, though Black people only make up 11%, they make up 40% of the prison population here, which is the largest gap in the U.S. for a state of this size. And then those also translate into economic opportunities as well. So the Black poverty rate in Connecticut is around 27%, specifically in pavement, and which is the rate of the poverty rate in the city. And Black income in the city is around 2,000, whereas the DMV area, which is DC and Virginia, it's around 89,000, and in Atlanta, it's around 65,000. And I cite the DMV area in Atlanta because of the areas that are structured with these HBCU ecosystems. Maryland has around 7 HBCUs within their state, and a lot of the other states around them also have as well. So, kind of giving you context, we kind of jump into Dr. Blue here to kind of her and how we oriented together and the idea of
Let's acknowledge older DMC.
So I'm Medria Blue. I'm principal of the Engineering and Science University Magnet School. I'm also a Howard graduate and a Canadian Public School graduate. I graduated from Hill House High School in 1989. So jumping in, one of the statistics that Malachi has included and shared with us, the college gap that exists in Connecticut. So nationally, there's a gap in most states, but almost twice as high as other states. So when we think about how will this impact our community? One is that we've been struggling in our educational system as principals in public schools for like about 30 years. Educator for about 30 years, but this is something that we have been struggling with, and it impacts our city in a variety of ways. Now, I mentioned how other cities, other states are doing better because they have these other options for people, specifically the HBCUs. Recently, someone said, what is the advantage of Connecticut, right? Right. So this opportunity for New England to make sure that the citizens of this community have additional access to college opportunity, we can contribute to our economy and benefit from some of the wonderful things that are going on with quantum in our communities. In terms of like startups and understanding that has to be done, not only the management of the stream, but in seeing something through, I'll use eSIMs as an example. So I know what that an idea integrated into something that is promising and beneficial. There were many people who didn't think that eSIM was going to work. We had several different schools. The year I became principal, there were 3 others that tried it out, with a solid idea, knowing if we prepare students for film education, if you build it, and they will come. So really I came not only with this idea of being bring a satellite campus to, the opportunity to engage in the economic power that truly for me. There are students who always want to go to an either it's too far or maybe can't afford it. A lot of first generation parents with students, they sometimes don't know a lot about HBCU, so our organization, we work to make sure that they understand that more lawyers, doctors, engineers, you name it, whatever field you're talking about, most of those people in those positions have gone to HBCU if they are. We know that we offer schools, and so this is a unique opportunity to also have a partnership with some of some other universities might be a host for us, one or more than one. We see it as a win-win for the universities that we have here, for our students who are looking for these unique opportunities. We have any other that have left out or have questions, I'm here to answer questions about the HBCU experience, questions about the number of students, where they're coming from, interact with the HBCU. Here in Connecticut.
Before you take, you like that? So,
And first of all, I have to take additional time or energy away from the meeting next to this work. Just to say, this is an application through the DEC Community Investment Fund program. So they make available plain grants. And typically what we brought to you in the past is sort of, we're going to build this building. Let's find a plain grant to go. You'll see in the budget that this is more of a broad-based initiative. So there's a journey to it, building so many stakeholders that are going to rally around an initiative of this significance and finding pathways to operational in the economy of the Northeast. So the budget is sort of written from that perspective. I noticed, and I regret that this next year did not identify a source of the match. We have that available together. Should the grant not be awarded in the CIF round, I think it's fair to say as well that the team most close to this will identify other opportunities, and so you'll see over time that should it not be CIF, you may see this in a different variation as the project moves along.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're fine. You're going to get the full budget, but we have a little bit of a breakdown. That is page 8 right here. So it's a $300,000 budget made up of a $250,000 planning grant from the city, as I mentioned, with a $50,000 match from the city to carry out the work and planning grant and feasibility study. So this is not like a commitment. This is more so, ask for permission to go for these funds, to participate with the alumni network in applying for these funds. And if we are awarded these funds, executing and implementing the funds once we get them. So I didn't really go too much through this slide deck. I can answer any questions. If you have any comments, if you can go through the slide for more information, feel free. I'm all yours. I didn't want to talk too much. I'm a talker, so I'm trying to limit my talk.
to clarify, the city of New Haven is going to receive the grants that we awarded. Staff will be administering those funds for the planning and design of the university with that project.
So I can talk a bit about the structure. So the CT alumni, HBCU alumni network will be the recipient of the fund, and we're going to execute a cooperative agreement between the alumni network and the city. The alumni network will get a portion of the fund to carry out the technical aspect of this, such as speaking with the city of Boston, also working on HBCU. We're speaking with the city of San Francisco, coordinating with HBCU. So we felt that a lot of the technical aspect of this work would be carried out by city staff. However, the city we did not want to lead or to impose this, as said we wanted to get it to be a bottom-up approach. So we partnered with organizations and teams ready to work in businesses and really carry out the vision. So we really wanted to ground it in the community as opposed to it being an imposition from the mayor's office.
Or I'm familiar with the platform, or some of my colleagues are not, so. Questions from committee?
Thank you for the presentation and thank you for the vision. This is something I hadn't thought about before. Could you just talk a little bit about like how it actually works? What is it? You embed it or supported by other universities, and what does it look like?
Yes, so my page. Yeah, yeah, so that's perfect. So, so the planning grant will answer, will seek to answer a lot of these questions in terms of governance. We had a few different pitches. So of course, there are a lot of people who said, well, maybe it should be a new entity, so a new school created. The problem with that, unfortunately, with the federal administration and also the Supreme Court, is cases like SFA that came in 2023 that struck down affirmative action. That unfortunately is not that much of a feasible pathway to actually getting a historically Black university and college. And the definition of HBCU is tied to a federal statute in the Higher Education Act, and it defines it as a school established before 1964, whose main mission and purpose is the education of Black people. So because of that, HBCUs are historically looking. So in order to actually have a new HBCU in New Haven, you would have to rely on the federal government to amend that statute and then to allow an additional HBCU to come in. Or we could tack on HBCUs that already exist and are already funded by the federal government, which is kind of the idea that we're looking to do, so a little less, less difficult to achieve. So in that, we have two other options: bring in a satellite here. So we haven't committed to a school, but let's say Howard wants to come to New Haven, they would pop up a Howard somewhere in New Haven. It's Howard at New Haven. So there's one option. The second option was creating a consortium. So kind of hybrid of both, creating a new 501c3 organization that is a consortium or an entity, and that entity is a shared services entity among the other partner organizations or schools. So that idea is, if we partner with a Southern or a Yale, then the expenses incurred by students who attend the HBCU and take classes at Southern or Yale are paid for from this nonprofit entity as opposed to it being paid for by the satellite or by the individual school. So we don't want to overburden schools, but we want partnerships because we don't want to duplicate effort. So in thinking about creating a higher educational institution, we already have 6 within, kind of the proper. So, people are going to say, well, we already have 6 universities. We don't know more. That's what people are going to say. And then universities are going to say, well, that adds more competition. So to kind of alleviate and kind of eradicate all of the fears, we're trying to do a partnership model by which a student who attends the HBCU can take classes at Southern, can take classes at Gateway, at Yale, and at partner other institutions who partner, and then their fees that they incur and charge to the nonprofit. And then the profit will be hopefully after college of age 31. So kind of a hybrid of both. So it's not a new institution, but it is a new 501c3. And the 501c3 will be a consortium that will hold kind of the small expenses. And we've seen models like this work in Claremont, California, where there's a shared system called the Claremont, California entity that is a nonprofit. The entity yields $20 million budget a year, and each school in California, they pulls from that budget to transport students to campus, to also house students that may live on UCC's campus that go to PCU. So that's kind of how they operate. There's also one in Atlanta that is a partnership of HBCUs, like Morris Brown, CAU, Clark Atlanta University, Spelman, and Morehouse. They have a shared that has a shared library system. They have shared food services. All of that has a cost, but that cost is incurred not to the individual university, to the entity. So I hope that was clear a little long. So that's kind of some of the ideas of how it would govern. But we would defer you to where the kind of the consultant said that would be best.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Comment? Mr. Chair, this is fantastic. Thank you all for coming to the presentation. Have you spoken with any of the partner institutions yet? When does that happen in the process? And if you have spoken to them, have they been receptive?
So we did talk to Representative at Summer, and so it's not something, because this is a feasibility study, we are not making any commitments, we just shared an idea, and it was interesting learning more, but we've been intentional not to try to move before we actually get the grant. We want to make sure that the process, that we're really following the process, that we're really vetting the universities and deciding the universities that make sense for what we're trying to accomplish.
Sweet. And can you reiterate, like, what is the decision body behind this? Is there going to be like a new commission focused on this that comes out of the grant? Will it be economic development and your organization in partnership? What does that look like?
Yeah, ideally, we wanted to create an advisory group. So out of the grant, I kind of see it. They're creating a steering group who is like the day-to-day of the people who kind of advance the grant, who work with me. Then we'll have like an organic group, of course, made up of all the VP, the alders, kind of the breadth of what's going on. And then we'll have individual kind of special committees that focus on environmental, that focus on education. In education, we would have some of the higher education presidents and or some of their representatives, and then another one for the businesses. So we really want to be strategic. So the decision body will likely come from that steering group who manages the day-to-day, and also the alder managers side by side. So that will be made up of mainly city officials, mayor, we'll kind of, and then also alumni network. And then we also will have some advisors as well, so or organizational advisors. The head of the NAACP of Connecticut, the head of the Greater Haven NAACP, just some other movers and shakers, people from the inclusive growth. So with other kind of advisors to kind of advise us on how we move and make decisions. But the idea is to kind of have it be collaborative, like, more decision based. And then we will lead our consulting group as well, but the consulting group will answer to the decision people who are the standards.
Thank you so much.
I might alter just a bit of a clarifying point on it. HBCU alumni are at the center of the conversation, and there's lived experience. There's an understanding of what would make this, mutually successful for the future students. And we consider the city staff very much in a supportive role, recognizing the value in meeting, but the HBCU alumni network center of it, as the slide said.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, first of all, thank you for bringing this into our city and to us. A lot of times we ask to swing big, and this is a great swing and something that is restorative, reparative, and something really needed in our community. I have two questions. One is more technical in terms of how if the feasibility study will also cover whether this would be a 2-year degree, 4-year degree. We have technical, where we're seeing it on the higher education spectrum. And of the sort of models we went through, creating like a new federally recognized university, a satellite campus, I think like Howard, like Mecca, New Haven would be awesome. We know those things, for the NYU and Abu Dhabi, et cetera. We know that model. And the person model, I know that they're not colleges, but in this case, like how it would work. But I think the consortium model is really, really interesting. Director Piscitelli said that the Connecticut Alumni Network of HBCUs is at the center. So if you could just explain more about that alumni network here in Connecticut and why this project is so important and why they've agreed. It's not going to be easy for the network to take on, agreed to sort of take this on as.
The alumni network started with a simple idea of a send-off. So keeping in the tradition of experience, when students go off to college to HBCUs, the community knows that it's a celebration, not just for the individual, for everybody, for people, the teachers that have helped out, anyone in the community, the coaches, the family. And so we are going into our 8th send-off where we celebrate all the students in the state who are going to an HBCU. We have community partners, some of our civic organizations, some of the ones that Malachi mentioned have been long-time supporters of this event. Home Depot purchase dorm supplies for the students. People come early and pitch tents. That's how meaningful this is. Our high schools and dance groups, they also come out and perform. We have a pastor that prays for the students. We have food trucks, just a huge celebration. We also do college fairs. We're partnered with Chris Hall Association and the Basketball Hall of Fame, and we were busing students from Connecticut to Mohegan Sun. And our alumni came out, and some of the colleges actually came in person to recruit students. We had a huge fair. Chris Paul has moved his class to Vegas, but before he moved, we were busing up to students throughout the state to have a college fair experience, but to also get a little bit of a feel for the culture, which is so the pride that we have in having attended HBCUs. So the students would get to see the 6 HBCUs would play. And we would also do a kind of a halftime show. There's somebody, I don't know, we'll have time for all the speakers and sign up. Very instrumental in putting together this event where our students got to be like performing for the halftime show. We also do work in this policy work that somebody invites us to do, to participate in other organizations. We're getting ready to do a bus trip to with another organization that does great work with students in Hartford. And for that, we want students, they'll attend the college fair, they're an HBC college fair, but we also know what Northwood Vineyard in the summer is to Black people. They might run into Spike Lee or, the Obama delivers ice cream or something, so they'll get to see what this experience is about. Sometimes our students also can't envision the future. And so we seek to expose them in a variety of things. We go to schools. There's a number of things in here. You'll see some of the tours. We send students, we partner with organizations in Bridgeport. We have sent students on their tour to actually visit HBCUs, which I think is important. I actually Howard college tour at Hill House. So it's very important for our students to get the exposure on campus, but also to hear and see and have role models. So there's some mentorship. So that kind of answers a little bit about kind of what we do in our years. We have a scholarship fund. We give out about $5,000 each to around 6 students every year. The Butterfly Foundation, students going to Hampton, Spelman, to school in the school that's not an HBCU. And what else do we do? Today, there's a college fair in Hartford, no, not Hartford, Bridgeport at the amphitheater. It's a PWI private, PWI institution college fair, but they want HBCU presence. So we put a call out and we represent, this is how we feel about our schools. we represent our schools and we sell our schools. We usually don't rely on a huge staff to do recruitment. It's the alumni who do that. Then we have a board meeting tonight. So it's that kind of commitment. For the other question, you asked about 2-year or 4-year, part of the feasibility study will also explore that because we know that things are changing very quickly. How students learn in college. We will be able to afford students to be innovative, won't be, like their competition because students are learning differently in college. Doing projects, internships. That's why the partnership with the businesses is really important because you can't really offer a curriculum that you're not putting the students going to do when they get it. And it's very important if we're saying that we want to be into this space of like quantum. The curriculum is going to have to match that. So who we partner with on both ends, whether the school here and the HBCU, it's going to be very important that we can keep that vision, unless you'll just have more students. We're having lots of students who get degrees, but not getting the jobs that they envision. So that's very, very important for us to make sure this will lead to not debt, but actual employment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually didn't raise my hand, but I was about to, so you can predict the future clearly, Mr. Chair. Thank you, all three of you, for your presentation. You mentioned vision. Just so thank you for helping our cities imagine for us, for all of us. A few questions. One, I noticed in the notes that we unfortunately weren't able to receive the SIF round 8. Did you receive any feedback on your application? And how did that at all for round 5 shop?
Yeah, feedback. Really, I would say this. I've received feedback from past grants that I had to write in the past, and it was rough. But this one, there were some budget problems. So there were some expenses that were programmatic, and DECD did not want that their money, their state money to be spent on programs. They don't mind community engagement programmatic in theory, but because there's one recipient of said community engagement contract, it's more so capital as opposed to programmatic. So that was the big concern. I believe the DECD was budgetary problems. So we just listed some ineligible expenses. The city's a portion of the city's allocation could be devoted to some programming as well. So we just have to be a lot clearer with the next budget. And they wanted us also to shorten the we wanted to do like a 2-year feasibility period, do a lot of community engagement, but they advised those practices are 9 to 12 months. They were like anything more than that becomes too much. So they gave a lot of good suggestions of how we can. I think once those are fixed, change. I it's being
Thank you, Kai. And Malachi, you spoke really eloquently. One of the driving desires is around supporting our own, supporting community students here. But I can also imagine that university and colleges draw students from everyone across the country. And I'm curious, perhaps for a feasibility study will look at this, but even at a high level, when you think about how many students or your students will come from New Haven, do you have any initial reflections on what that might look like? Is that part of the value is drawing students from everywhere? Curious, just any reflections you have on that.
Specifically in the data schools today.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did do some data and we found for the schools that draw more international state students are going to be Yale. So Yale gets around 56 to almost 60,000 applications a year. and they only accept 400 typically that application pool, and then UNH has a really robust kind of out of country student, and also out of state. A lot of the state schools, unfortunately, don't have the same record of people coming from out of state. Um, so when trying to model this and trying, speak with other schools, it will benefit them because HBCUs, on the other hand, they attract a lot of students from out of state. And they attract a lot of students from out of the country, specifically Colorado has a very robust international population, as well as Morgan State University, and as well as Hampton University and Spelman. So they attract a lot of students, and those schools that I just named, they get a lot more application volume as well than a lot of the local schools here. So an HBCU partnership benefits a lot of the schools here as well if they choose to be into the partnership because students will be applying to those schools. And even though they may not get into the HBCU for whatever reason, they can attend another school. And if they're in the partnership, they can still go to the campus, experience the programming on the HBCU campus, et cetera, et cetera.
And then just one last question. You brought up already really helpfully in the presentation so far some of the decision nodes that you hope to glean through the feasibility study. Is there anything else you have to mention that through the course of the feasibility study we hope to sort of decipher or discover, or by the end we have a better sense of direction? But, yeah.
So the reason why initially we wanted to do a 2-year study was because we were looking at modeling, we were looking at what San Francisco did, and it took them a good 2 years to kind of plan out this event. And at the end of their planning, they did a summer program for their students in San Francisco. So they put out an RFP for HBCUs in the South, and they ended up picking Tulane in Houston. So Tulane opened up a satellite campus in San Francisco, I believe at the University of San Francisco. So, and then they had this partnership where, and then they hosted this summer program with LinkedIn. So it was a really cool event. So we're looking forward to them, not to kind of start from scratch, but to kind of duplicate the good work that's already been done. So at the end of the planning study, we wanted to be advanced enough so that the city could put out an RFQ. However, I think that the RFQ in the same light that San Francisco did to find a partner that would be interested in opening up a second location or expanding into the Northeast. I don't think we'll be ready for that after 9 months or after 12 months, but that was the aspirational goal. So I think we'll have to do a lot of more studying and a lot more implementation work before that happens. But that is the end goal. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Joy.
Look, one more time. I've worked with Dr. Blue before, so I know anything she puts her energy behind, it's going to get over the finish line. Let me just say that this is long overdue. It wasn't until I joined Walters that I learned about that's it, from Walter Ficklin. Got to know Walter Ficklin very well. Attacked him a number of the presentations on Great Mr. Warner is back. It's surprising to me about the no HBCUs in the Northeast. That's crazy, considering the history of the Northeast. Malachi, a mystery. Somebody that I thank God for every morning in my prayers, and if you don't know him, get to know him. Thank God every morning in your prayers. I just have a simple question because I'm looking at the partnerships. Can we talk a little bit more about Yale's involvement in this and what kind of push they're going to be putting behind this? Kind of seeing that they kind of started this.
Yeah, I will say we were very strategic and not to really kind of blow up the idea before we got the funding and also before we came to the Board of Alders. So this has been an idea kind of brewing for a couple of years. It's kind of been in discreet a little bit because we did not want to run before the Boulders and you didn't remember the topic. So there has been some informal discussions with, some other higher ed partnerships. Yale seem to be of interest, in at least in exploring the idea. And Yale does seem to be a great partner as they are the ones who kind of funded a lot of the history of the challenge of moving on, a great historian. He's been an advisor for us too, and he's been letting me talk his ear off our house. So, Yale does seem in a place and in position to, one, acknowledge its history, and also to follow that up with action. But I will say we haven't done too much of them in formal sense because we were kind of strategic who we go to it at what time. I will say that now that we've been to the board of voters and based upon everyone's, their decision today, we can kind of run to the hills, kind of go to everyone and say, you need to be a part of this. But we were kind of hesitant to do that.
Well, thank you for your presentation, and I'm very honored to be a part of it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Full transparency committee. I have helped facilitate meetings with Mr. Bridges and also participated in the meeting with Southern, the mayor, and others. So I don't have any questions. I do have a couple of questions. With your CIF round 8 executive summary, just the other day they opened up their chance for an interview. Review that summary. Did you go online and apply?
We're trying to find a couple.
The only guys left.
We'll take one. We'll take one.
I would do that sometimes. Yeah. One thing that my neighborhood sent a letter to the web, where the hill, that they're really happy. Our whole site, which is Southern, I know Mr. Morgan is here. And my home, but anyways, that would be a true testament to very able to actually hold that there on that property. I just need you to speak a little bit more about the population. When you have 6 universities in our space, you may have increasing enrollment in one, declining enrollment at another. How do you see that partnership working, David? And have you got any positive input from the outreach, or have you got wait and see?
Yeah, maybe you want to speak to the number of students that go from here to 8, which we see.
So we send off just about 35 students a year, but many more students are actually attending. So these are the students that actually register. Our network has probably in college students.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Our network right now in college, we probably have about 300 students because not everybody registers with us for the send-off. They might register after, or they come to the send-off, but they're not a registered participant. They found out late. We do send out information to guidance counselors and things like that, but not everybody always gets a chance to pre-register. So the exact number of students who are attending versus the exact number of students who apply, because every year, like as a principal, I know I have students who apply, but sometimes reasons they might be doing sometimes it's money, but some PWIs or university, so they can offer like a full scholarship or something like that. And so,
yeah, and then just to kind of piggyback off that as well, there are a number of universities who will eventually experience an enrollment cliff, and that is after a lot of people stop having the number of children that they had prior to that market crash. So with that comes less students in your public schools and less students in higher education. However, despite that, and the enrollment plan has not yet hit yet, I believe it will fall 6. after then will be a true testament of how well a lot of the schools do. But I will say a lot of it outperform local universities here. So of course, UConn and Yale are within their own kind of sphere. Because UConn has the basketball program and Yale is just Yale. So those two schools are, kind of those are kind of the hyperbolic examples. The more colorful examples would be, your Harvards, your Southern, your all of these schools. And typically, in like your Southern, for example, they had around 800 applications in 23 versus Jackson State had 14,000, right? And it within the same year. So the idea is to attract regionally students from New England and from the northern Mid-Atlantic, Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, to want to attend. People who want to experience the may feel that it's far away. So that was kind of my predicament. I wanted to go to Howard, and I toured Howard, and I loved Howard. And then I got the fee bill, and I was like, woof. I was not much of a risk taker growing up, so I got some full ride offers, and I said, okay, I'll take a full ride, and I'm happy. I love UConn. I'm a Husky, but I always did wonder about what it would have been like if I was in Navy. And honestly, despite my love for UConn, I will say sometimes me as campus, I did not feel like I belonged. I say this all the time, it's not as traumatizing as it was back then, but today, my first political theory class, 300 students, probably 20 blacks in that class, 300. And the professor asked about slavery, and everyone looks back at the black kids like, like, I'm like, this is, and I laugh about it now, I kind of joke about it now, but that is an experience that a lot of students, they sometimes feel that PWI, sometimes they feel that they're not worth it. And school do have students who kind of affirmative action as well too. So, a lot of students experience that. So being able to go to a university where the majority of people look like you, the majority of people are smart like you, and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is so amazing. And that is the experience that a lot of students, even in the East, they desire that feeling and not feeling like the other, but feeling like they are a part of a group and a part of the system. So that is the open aspiration, is to draw students regionally and also to draw students from that branding mechanism. So HBCUs have an individual brand, like Howard has an individual brand, right? But also HBCUs collectively have a collective brand. So like HBCU Pride, its own, or like HBCU Grad, they're its own companies that sell millions of dollars of merchandise a year, and then the individual schools sell their own merchandise. So you kind of have a duality brand marketing working for you as well. So the idea is wherever the school ends up being hosted at will be kind of the gateway to the TCU. So that's the idea. So, and we don't hope to be within the first year to have like 30,000 children. Of course, we hope to kind of scale it up. You don't want to start too large and fail. So you want to start small and kind of scale up your demand. So that's kind of the idea. It's to glean from the branding of the HBC as a whole, your level of the applications that they get in comparison to local schools, and also among your regionals and your internationals that also are attracted to HBCUs as well.
And I'm glad there are some HBCUs that have like under 2,000 students. So it doesn't have to be a very large university. And I hope that you're understanding a bit of what Malachi is talking about with the HBCU. Like I see people walking around a shirt and it'll just say HBCU. If you're a member of any civic organizations, civic organizations are a really big thing, and we all have aims for HBCUs. So a member of the Links Incorporated, was a link, and so we have an aim for HBCUs. We put our efforts here. My sorority has an aim for HBCUs. But the trip that I talked about taking students to Martha's Vineyard, when we go to Martha's Vineyard, we're going to see a lot of Black people walking around with our college out there. Sometimes it's our organization, but you'll definitely see, and there's a friendly, there's a love celebrating. We probably heard of homecoming. I go to homecoming every year. Yes, I'm supposed to, but they know in October I'm going to be going for homecoming. And that is where I rebirth and renewal. So when Malachi talks about his experience at UConn, the parts that were really challenging, I go home because I have the exact opposite. And it's the only place where I remember where you can really truly feel like that. Where you know, someone is celebrated, you're here, alumni, that, you know, it's always people doing amazing things that come back, and we're all one again. So it's a really special thing. It's magical. And generally, you know, the might want to say how law school, but the undergraduate experience is um,
Good place to focus.
okay.
Director Piscatelli, I hope you understand you have, yeah, Mr. Bridges, Ms. Creation, Mr. Esquire for putting this together.
Gems for our entire community,
So just to
and
let you know that.
give a sense for the journey, and intent is bigger, momentum. It'll take, you know, as we described, maybe this way, another way, but you have to start somewhere, and I think you guys for that. I know there are people.
The committee before we open. Wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the only item on the agenda, so I'm call for public testimony at this time. Is the only one? Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to testify? Come on, sir. Got it's a minute 30. Get up. Are you coming jointly or?
Come on, so,
Okay. Mr. Warner, you'll be
I
next.
will just wait before,
I signed up and that's right.
Okay, we'll go right after Mr. Ezra.
Okay, great.
Mr. Hogan, should we go through this? Mr. Nussel.
Name and address for the record.
Don't want to mess with the chair. You already did it too late.
Name and address for the.
My name is Scott X. Esdale, and I live at 847 Wooden Street in Hamden, Connecticut. Born and raised in, born on Lander Street. Remember the Esdale came to the city in 1917. Been here for over 100 years. And I love the great city of New Haven. I'm the state president of the Connecticut NAACP. I'm also a member of the National Board of Directors. We are the largest and oldest civil rights organization in the world, with over 500,000 members and 2,200 branches. I'm the national board member representing the Northeast Corridor, which represents from Delaware to Maine. So I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm glad to be in my hometown. Man, if I would be able to speak to this particular issue, I have a little bit more the civil rights side to this, and a little bit more of a radical approach to this, because I have to speak on behalf of our people that were hurt, harmed, killed, murdered, and many individuals' property was destroyed during this particular riot that actually took place. And I know that they talked earlier about the vote of 700. There was also a major riot that took place. So I don't want that history to be excluded. And I know that and I know that this is an expert as well. The major concern of why they fought to stop this HBCU in 1831, which is amazing for someone to even think that slavery was actually going on during that time. You know, that slavery so-called stopped in 1865. But I say all that to say is that with this HBCU that was striving to be founded in 1830, the major concern, the root of the problem, was that we wanted to stop educated black men interacting with white women. That was the root of the problem. I talked about my family coming into this city in 1917. The NAACP was founded in 1909. The Greater New Haven branch was also founded in 19. But during that particular time, there were many riots going on all across the nation. Red Summer that was going on, and many people were being brutalized and killed. And Teal was lost his life in the South. The Tulsa riots happened in the South based on this war that was happening between black men and white women. I think it needs to, just on behalf of our ancestors, it needs to be spoken about. And in New Haven, the same thing was going on as well. And it stopped and really destroyed uh, many dreams from becoming into reality. And the deep-rooted issue of racism is still running rampant to this day. Uh, the NAACP was founded to stop the lynchings that were going on in the South. The purpose of our organization was founded in New York City, couldn't fund because we're talking about stopping lynchings from going on in the South. We would have been killed even talking about starting an organization like this. The NAACP so I'm going to hear Rihanna and Beyonce and Chris Brown and all those individuals. But back in the day, an individual called Billie Holiday, and she sang a song called "Strange Fruit in the Trees." She wasn't talking about apples or oranges or bananas or anything like that. She was talking about young black men painting in the tree. And this is something that our families and our history has, and our young people and our elders have to deal with on a regular basis. So I say all this to say is that when we talk about this HBCU and who was involved and who was engaged, I think the original meeting happened here at City Hall. And the mayor was involved in this as well. I know we talk about here, but City Hall was deeply rooted and involved in this destruction. The churches on the green were deeply involved. White and they were deeply involved, and they are responsible for what took place as well. You all represent the city of New Haven. Now, there's been discussion about where college should go. And I want to make sure that I speak on this record from someone who's born and raised in New Haven. And someone that understands all the history. I'm not a historian, but I'm a fan of historians. I say all this to say is that whatever is done, I support this initiative under the contingency that this has to be black owned. Just based on what was done to our ancestors, not only here, but all throughout the nation. This has to be black owned. We can't rebuild this problem and then someone can kick us off of our problem. So how you all need to understand the history. We all need to be more engaged in this home. We need to get more in the community involved. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that you're very clear in reference to NAACP. NAACP supports us, but it has to be black owned. We have to have our own land that we own. There's an individual from New Haven, individuals in this room. He's the president of Livingstone College, born and raised from New Haven as well. We go look up Dr. Anthony J. Davis. he's the president of Livingstone College that owns 400 acres of land. It's a private college. If you look at the HBCUs across the nation, it's about 100 of them. Majority of them are small colleges, and majority of them are private colleges. They stayed private because they wanted to keep their land, because there were so many individuals that were abused and destroyed, so much land that was stolen over the years. So I say all that to say is that if we learn anything, and history is best qualified for all research, that this has to be Black owned. In reference to blood, in reference to individuals that were hung, the lynchings, the individuals that were killed and destroyed over the years, it is imperative that the city does right on behalf of their blood on their hands involved in this particular situation. There's blood on the hands of the city of New Haven in reference to the riots and the individuals' lives that were destroyed in this to strive to have the first Black HBCU in the nation. And I say all that to say is that we are supportive, under the contingency that this is Black owned. Thank you so much for giving me a few words. If you have any questions for me.
Thank you.
Alice Coleman. Name and address for the record, please.
I'm Alice Coleman. My address is 38 Greenhill Terrace in New Haven, Connecticut. I won't take much of your time because a lot was said. Support 100%. I am one of the founders of the Connecticut HBCU Alumni Network. I am also vice chair of the board, Connecticut HBCU Alumni Network. I'm also an educator. I am assistant principal at Career High School in New Haven, Connecticut. I come in contact with many students who are interested in HBCUs. The reason we founded this organization, as you've heard, was to bring further awareness of historically Black colleges and universities. When we first started it, the reason we started it is I did work at ESOM with Dr. Blue, and we found that there were a lot of students who didn't understand the importance of creating a foundation of confidence and awareness of your background and culture. And as we started this work with this organization, we have found that we have increased awareness by a lot, basically because of the different events that we sponsor, such as the send-off and college fairs that we have done. We, at my school alone, I would say we're approaching about 10% of our graduating class this year is, if they haven't fully accepted, because acceptance day is May 1st, but they are approaching acceptance of an historically Black college and university. This therefore shows the importance of this type of institution in this particular town. Like she said, there aren't any in this area. There is a lot of interest in it. A lot don't end up going because of finances. And they are at least able to experience the culture of a historically Black college and university. So I'm just here to, once again, lend my support. I'm doing the work. I'm not a native of Connecticut at all. But when I came here, I did vow to leave a mark and help the population that I chose to enter when I came here. So I thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And I hope you support this as well. Thank you.
You have two young lady students that are focused on getting to Morton State.
Yes.
I'll be talking to them later.
Good, yes, I talk to them often. And I also talk to these students when I find out they're applying to HBCUs. Of course, it holds a special piece of my heart and makes me give them more encouragement because it's the foundation. That is the thing we have to understand. And, you know, we have to understand too, you talk about all the colleges that are in the area, which is very important. There's grad school. You know, the foundation of undergraduate school is really very, very important. After that, you can go anywhere and have the confidence and be very involved and successful in the other institutions that you here. Thank you.
Name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Charles Warner Jr. I live at 284 Grandview Avenue in Hamden, Connecticut currently. My family has been in New Haven for just over 50 years. I was born and raised on Bellevue Road in the West, as Alder Hogan called it. I was born and raised on Bellevue, and it shaped and formed who I am. A few people attended to all important things in historically Black colleges and universities. The last time I was before this group, I was talking to you all about the 1831 college and the importance of higher education and understanding history and then sort of not being stuck in it, but using history to inform us about how we move forward in a way that is progressive and reparative. And at the very end of the day, what I can say is when you do the least of these, you're doing for everyone. A rising tide definitely lifts all ships. I am a fifth generation historically Black college graduate. When the first generation of my family to attend at HBCU attended Fisk University in the 1880s was 20 years after the enslaved Black people of the South were emancipated. There was certainly still dangerous to pursue knowledge and to read, and certainly to attend and be in the presence of one of these systems of education, which by solely existing as an edifice was a sitting target for terrorism, state-sponsored terrorism. I sit here today as somebody who currently likes to think of himself as someone who shows up where sort of community is in need. I'll be on hand to assist in whatever way I can. The ability to do that and the feelings attached to that sort of duty come from a historically Black college or university. Um, The sort of in 1831 was Mansfield and the 1831 college, other people have. Um, the sort of danger and the loss of that institution was not just one thing. It was deleterious in all of its impacts. Business, jobs, housing, civil rights, um, medical care, all of the problems of today were the problems then. I can say in New Haven, they were exacerbated by the absence of the 1831 college. So what do HBCUs do? All of those empty areas that were left by the 1831 college, where HBCUs were allowed to be established and proliferate, you can see the exact opposite. You find where there is a thriving Black business enclave, which helps economics throughout the city and the state where they're allowed to exist. You find institutions that are dedicated to medical care. You find increased political activity and the presence of elected officials. And so the sort of support for just exploring the idea of an HBCU is really a foray into exploring growth, development, and proliferation, not just for the Black community, but for New Haven and the region in general. The opportunity to be one of one, the first of one in the region, and then also really the opportunity to be progressive. At the time that these HBCUs were founded, you had neighbor groups, you had white people, you had indigenous people who were largely erased and ignored, and you had Black people. America is not like that anymore. Life is not so segregated. And so all of these new peoples who are now occupying space in America and occupying space in New Haven should be factored in to what is happening with life now. Historically, Black colleges and universities have never solely been about educating Black people. They have always been open to taking students who are qualified and who have an interest to be educated. Atlanta University is a model for where white students in Georgia were being educated at Atlanta University. Currently, over 10% of HBCU students are white students. And so this is not only sort of, I think one of the lightning rods will obviously be for change thinkers say that when you hear the word Black, it's exclusive. That has never been the case with Black creations, inventions, institutions in America. They have always been with Black people's sort of being iced out in mind, but with that understanding, they have been beacons of safety, education, and activity for anybody who comes. And so what I want you all to consider is this doesn't only sort of address a major American historical event. It addresses current needs in our community, and not in a way that is exclusive and solely relegated to Black people, but to all the citizens of New Haven, who we can all agree need the opportunity and access to higher education and opportunities to better their lives and participate in a way in the community that makes life better for everyone. And so I think just even hearing this proposal today, having this discussion, hearing these different people has been a worthwhile experience. And I congratulate you all for participating, having this before you participating, and considering this matter. And I'm here to endorse supporting this feasibility study. I will say this also. We have an opportunity to be creative, designers. That's what I know we're doing. For all the negative things that I've seen happen in the news and heard happen and experienced living in lifelong, that's all nullified by the good works of the people of this city who come together regardless of race, class, age to support things that are beneficial. I see that first with your service as officials, but no individually and seeing people out here, we have an awesome tapestry of supporting care. Assistant Superintendent Hammonds was my dad's student. My dad saw something in her and always talked about how she would end up one day, and she did. That comes from an HBCU education. Her education is HBCU education. Ms. Coleman, who I worked with when I was working at Easton's along with Dr. Blue, two people who are invested in this idea because they benefited and they lived it and they know its worth and value. They also know that somebody like a Malachi who doesn't sit here with his cup flowing over from the experience, his comes from a sense of loss and disappointment in the fact that he wanted to participate and venture out to one of these institutions, and for whatever reasons he was not able to, economic reasons, was robbed of an opportunity. How many other young people in our community are robbed of this opportunity? We have an opportunity to bring when people leave our community to seek out here if we have something like that here, might be retaining the talent that we have homegrown in our community to come back here and make a difference. And so I just urge you all to consider some of these things in a light way. I also avail myself to provide any education, any information as this process goes through. I'll be glad to share what I know with you all. And I am a supporter in whatever way I'm asked to serve. I thank you all for this opportunity, and I thank you all for maybe even being a bit prescient. The last time we were here, we didn't move forward with the discussion about 1831 College on the heels of the passing of the Finley. Understanding why, because it deserved a larger conversation. That's what this body told me and told the public. And you were right. Who knew that this would come back around where people would be created and that what we table, because we wanted more public discussion and more attention. I knew that the opportunity would come in this form. So we have an opportunity to kind of go back and address something we left on hold and to design the future. And I look forward to doing that with you all. I'm excited and I'm just proud of New Haven and all of us for even having this discussion, especially at this time in our nation's history. So thank you all for again New Haven for being leaders and stepping forward, daring to dream. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that bring public testimony? Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Keisha Red Hannons, 155 Hearn Lane, Hamden, Connecticut. Let me just say thank you. You could choose anything to be on your agenda, and I know. But you chose this topic. And this topic is something that's near and dear to a lot of our hearts, but it's clearly important to all of you. You're taking a stand. You're embracing innovation. We're embracing community, embracing all of our students and citizens. And so if no one else says it, and it's been said, but you need to hear it more, thank you. The HBCU experience changed my life. As someone who grew up, born and raised in New Homeville, attended Lincoln Bassett, Jackie Robinson, and Hill House. When I stepped on Howard's campus, it was home immediately. And I had been to other universities, but something just fell apart. But Howard gave me the will, the confidence to know that I truly could be successful, and told me exactly what the possibilities were for me in my life, and that was endless. Please understand, we have students in New Haven just like me that's looking for that experience to feel like home when they leave the natural setting of K-12. Next week, I'm organizing with another organization an HBCU panel that will be held. We've been holding this HBCU panel for at least 5 years. When I tell you the students on their phones, they're enthralled by what's happening. And we bring the pain and we bring the vibe and the flavor of the HBCU culture into the space where we are. And we have our panelists talk to our students. They don't want to leave. They don't want to leave the room once the panel is over because they still have questions. They still want to connect with all of us in such a way to understand, how do I get there? How do I make it happen? And please understand, if we just have a satellite campus, Howard at New Haven, I heard of Mecca at, it will change the game for our students. You all are aware of career connected pathways that we have in New Haven, how awesome would that be to have something in New Haven that's an HBCU as an option for our students? It takes innovation because we're talking the Northeast, we're not in the South, we're talking the Northeast. When I first went to Howard, the question came, there's Black people in New Haven, there's Black people in Connecticut. Imagine the change that you will make for our students. So I just wanted to say thank you and to let you know I fully support this feasibility study. I fully support us exploring and always conducting research to see what's possible for our students. Because trust me, we will be turning the light bulbs on for several of our students. So thank you for the time this evening.
Is there anyone else that would like to give public testimony? Anyone else that would like to give public testimony? Is there anyone else that would like to give public testimony?
Mr. Chair, I move we close the public portion.
Yes, testimony submitted from John Taylor, founder and principal of Washington Academy. Also from Chef Douglas. And finally, from Rebecca Kramer on behalf of the BoA Education Committee Community Management Team, all of us.
Thank you, Ms. Mazza, for reminding us about the we'll
Close the public portion.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
With regards to the item that has been presented to us, the resolution of for the city to participate in the investment fund planning grant. Entertain motion.
Motion, Lemon.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
I'm so excited about this project and so grateful to everyone doing the work to get the proposal ready and everyone who came out today to speak on behalf of it. This is such an important way to address really sad chapter in New Haven's history. And I appreciate all the people who really hope Yale can be a partner here. It's one thing to have the exhibition, which is really powerful and moving, do the whole Yale slavery initiative and explore this issue. But there's another thing to put money and resources towards what should have been here years ago actually happened. And so, yeah, as someone who represents people on campus, I hope to be a partner in pushing them to do the right thing. Thank you all.
Discussion? Alderman Mendez?
I also am very excited about this project. I have to say it was impressive to see all the people testify this evening. However, I want to say thank you to Dr. Warner. His testimony of inclusion brought clarity to the topic, perhaps for some of us that are not quite clear on what it meant. It's important to, well, especially for me, to know that inclusion as a brown person, that they would say that, you know, it is for everyone, and it wouldn't hurt to learn a little more history, the background of where this is coming from. Super excited about it. And again, thank you for all this has been made with me.
Discussion? All in favor?
Yeah.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, I move to amend this item to replace SIF round 8 with SIF round 9 throughout the order.
So the second discussion?
The item was originally submitted for round 8, but is now submitted for round 9.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion has been moved. Entertain. Well, I have to call for a vote on the amended item. I'm sorry. Yes, the item as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Move to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Can I ask Ms. Coleman and Mr. Warner just to hang out for 1 minute? We are now adjourned. Thank you, sir. We're adjourned.
I talked about it, and everyone in the room said second Tuesday worked.
Thanks, Mr. Morgan, for attending.